What's up, everyone? Shane Larson here, host of the Game Time Guru podcast. Want to give a massive shout out to the official sponsor of the podcast. That's 208 Printing for making my shirts, my hats, my swag, everything. Now, if you guys are repping a team or you're repping a brand and you need some printing done for your shirts and all your merchandise, whatever it may be, go to madeby208.com and check out 208 Printing. They'll get you taken care of. Now, the thing I love about sports is you get to hear all these stories of these athletes and these former athletes and the journeys they went through. But one thing that always makes me sad is the whole what if story, right? But the guest I'm bringing on today, you might hear people say, well, what if he didn't get injured? What would he have been if he didn't get injured in college? And I don't think it should be a what if story. In fact, I'm so inspired by my guest's story because what he did is he made the best of his opportunities that he had and still had himself quite the professional career playing in the NBA and being called up time and time again from the D League, the CBA. And you guys are going to love this episode. It's going to be one that's inspiring for all athletes. If you guys want to hear a story of determination, grit, determination, and taking advantage of opportunities when they present themselves, you're going to love this episode of the Game Time Guru. So, what time is it? Game time! Woo! If you're sick of the mainstream sports outlets, well, so was I. So I started my own show. I'm Shane Larson, and this is the Game Time Guru. It's different than other talk shows. I'm providing a panoramic view on sports so you can see them through a different lens. So buckle up, and let's go. What's up, everyone? Welcome out to the Game Time Guru podcast. I am your host, Shane Larson. Once again, coming at you with another amazing interview as we're getting to know another individual in the sports world as we do our best to deliver a panoramic view on sports so you guys can see them through a different lens. We're 3.5 years into this podcast, over 50,000 downloads in 79 different countries, and we're continuing to grow. So we're super excited to bring on our guest. He played professional basketball for over 11 seasons. Now he's in the coaching realm, and we're going to get to know him better, get to know his entire journey from before the pro days. His name is Randy Livingston. Randy, thanks so much for joining the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Shane. Appreciate you having me on. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely, man. So a fun fact here, Randy, I actually remember you more so when you were with the Stampede because I live in Boise, Idaho. I'm here in the Treasure Valley, so I remember the Stampede days, but your career goes way back, like way before that. Talk to us a little bit about your upbringing and the sports background that you had before you even got to high school, for that matter. When did you get into sports, and how long had you been playing for?
Well, only the people that know me from New Orleans. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. And the housing project that I grew up was Master P. Then maybe a little food box down, it was the Cash Money guys. So, there's all sorts of people that, grew up in that community. And my first love was football, though. And the people that know me when I was younger and still to this day, and people that I got to play with, football is like a passion for me. And I was really good at it. And some guys that have made it to the NBA, NFL, that probably will be Hall of Famers soon, like Pat Surtain, who played for the Dolphins. They always tell me, man, if you'd have just kept playing football, you would have been, in the NFL. And so, like, football was my passion. I loved it. And, I just got better very quickly at basketball. I wasn't very good when I first started. 9, 10-year-olds played bitty basketball. And really my only goal in basketball was to be better than my brother. He was a pretty good basketball player when we were younger. And so, like, that drove me. And once I knew I could conquer him with the good brotherly love that most bigger brothers put on you, you feel like you can conquer the world. So, that's how I got involved in basketball. And like I said, for young kids out there listening, I wasn't very good when I started. Just trust me, believe me, I was just a guy who could barely dribble. And if I did dribble, it would bounce off my foot and go out of bounds. But at the end of the day, I worked hard at it. And I just continued to improve at a crazy rate to where it actually made me, leave my love, which was, football. But so I played bitty basketball. I remember I traveled to the Pacific Northwest when I was 11, I believe. We traveled by way of train, which took 3 days to get from New Orleans to Seattle. And we played in our first AAU national tournament, which was in Bellevue, Washington, which is right outside of Seattle. So, I'm quite fond of the Northwest. And, we came in 7th place out of like 140 teams, which was great for little kids that were from New Orleans. But after that year, from an amateur standpoint and a grassroots young guy, After that, that was the last AU tournament we lost till we were 16 years old. I think we only lost one other game after that. So we went on a heck of a run, and I was one of the catalysts of that team, of that AAU group. So, you know, that's like kind of the shortened version of that story. But like, I just kept getting better and kept working hard, and I had great coaching and great teammates.
That's super cool to hear that. And like you said, you know, for anybody who's listening who, you know, might be a little discouraged when they pick up basketball or whatever sport they're playing for that matter, it just keep working. You got to keep working on anything to develop your skill set, to work on your craft. And you never know what can happen. I mean, I have a question for you though. Like, what age did you decide to kind of take that? There's a lot of people that like there'll be multiple sport athletes, right? A multi-sport athlete, but then at some point they take the focus towards one sport. When did you start, you know, making that shift to basketball from football?
Well, I think when I got on 7th or 8th grade, that was the end of football. I think 8th grade was my last year playing football. But I still love basketball. I tried to play even after I was parade player of the year in the country with Jason Kidd, and then my senior year with Rasheed Wallace. I tried to play my senior year, led by one Peyton Manning trying to get me. Was my company in high school, and my senior year he knew I loved football, and he tried to get me to come out again. So it was I would say around 7th, 8th grade, I began to just get better and better at basketball just very quickly. And so it made it an easy, you know, transition out of football, although I still loved it. But that's when my decision was made to kind of just stick to basketball.
Totally. It's interesting you mentioned that, man. I had read up on that about you, that you went to school with Peyton Manning, and you're surrounded by a lot of great talent. But you yourself, you're a high school phenom. I mean, for those who are listening, I mean, like you just mentioned it right here. We can't just like play that soft, man. Like you know, National Prep Player of the Year '92 with Jason Kidd, like the co-national player that had, but you had Jason Kidd right next to your name, and then the next year, co-national Prep Player of the Year, Rasheed Wallace, like. These are big time names. Randy Livingston was player of the year alongside those guys, like 2 years in a row. Like, what I read up on is you led your team to 3 straight titles. Is that correct in high school for basketball?
Yeah, that's correct. And my high school, I tell everybody all the time, and I don't want me to be modest and that, but I put my high school career up against anyone, and that's even LeBron, whoever. I just had a run there that was, you know, unprecedented. My freshman year, I got to play high school. That probably was the best collection of talent in my high school career that we had. And unfortunately, we didn't win it all, but I averaged probably 19 points a game my freshman year. And then after that, the rest was history. Sophomore year, you know, I went to the Boston Shootout and played on the national scale and played very well with the likes against Juwan Howard and Michael Finley, with a group of guys just from New Orleans. So that was well. And then that sophomore year, we weren't expected to do much for as my high school team because we had a whole new starting 5, 4 besides myself. And so we just gelled at the right time. And then when I got to the playoffs, I mean, if I say the height of my career, making to the NBA is height, but like from like a number standpoint, I went on a 5-game playoff stretch that was unmatched. I think I averaged like 41 points and like 15 rebounds and 11 assists and like 6 blocks in 5 straight games. And so like it was like it just all came together. Like everything that you worked on, everything that all the hard work you put in, it just manifested itself during that period of time. And so that was probably for me my greatest run in high school was my sophomore year. And we kept winning and I played well and made the McDonald's game and all that stuff. But like pure numbers wise, yeah, it wasn't a stretch of 5 games. Yeah, I like it, to be honest with you, because everything clicked. You know, it didn't matter. 3-point shooting, driving, left, right, post-up game, pick and roll game, passing, just everything. You know, I have a celebrated high school career, and also from an AAU standpoint. Not petitioning for it, but if there's an AAU Hall of Fame, I mean, we run 5 AAU national championships, and I'm 5 times MVP in all of those events. So, and over AAU span, I think we were like 130 and like 3. And so, like, you know, I put that against whoever wants to measure it against. It could be the measuring stick, or if they want to say LeBron, or they want to say high school. I can put my numbers against anybody and feel comfortable doing that.
So that's the next 30 for 30 documentary on ESPN. You guys heard it here first. So here's the deal. We see that you were like this crazy, crazy good athlete, just put in a ton of work. Obviously those numbers, you guys can go check those numbers, by the way. He's not lying. Those numbers are out there. You can go see that stretch of games that he went on. It's just, the information's out there. That's awesome to see that you were able to hit your stride. Just crazy good athlete going through high school, especially. And then we go into the college days, Randy, and you go into the college days, and it sounds like, you had some knee injuries. You were battling some injuries. Talk about the first time you had to really, as you're going into college, you're staying in your home state, right, at LSU, and
Yep.
Big name coming out of high school, but then you're dealing with injuries. Talk about how that, how you got through those injuries and what that did to you mentally as well as physically.
Well, basically, after my my senior in high school, I got hurt July 4th, like I'll never forget it, in 1993 at ABCD camp. And the guys in the camp that I was a counselor for was Allen Iverson, Stephon Marbury. So go figure that. And so, yeah, we were playing in front of the scouts, and I tore my ACL. So before I even started my freshman year in college, I got hurt. And, that was the first time, like when you say utopia and magical runs, I had never had an ankle sprain or, nothing to that effect. And to then tear your ACL, I didn't know what an ACL was, to be honest with you, at that age. And, it was devastating because you didn't know. And obviously medicine and medical procedures were done differently. It isn't at the height that it is now. But, it was a tough go because I went from playing from 9 years old all the way to 17 and never been hurt in all those years. And now I'm sitting out and couldn't play. So mentally, it was devastating. I actually, in 4 months, was actually back playing with the team, but I thought it was a smart decision. Coach Brown and my family, we decided to redshirt my freshman year and let me get all the way back hill. And it was a grueling process. Rehab is tough for anybody, any level athlete. It doesn't matter which stage you are. And I came back, and I thought I was as close to about 100% as possible and was doing really well my freshman year at LSU. At one point, I was averaging like the first 10 games, like 16 points and 14 assists. And then that wound up going down to like 14 and 12. But, it was going well after my redshirt freshman year. We were 5-0 in the SEC conference. I was player of the week 2 weeks in a row. So it was back to the old, what they were used to seeing. And I'll never forget January 5th, 1995. So that's almost 2 years after surgery. First surgery, I broke my patella in half. So I went from ACL in the same knee, in the right knee, to now a fractured patella. And the first knee injury I could deal with. The second one was very, very tough because you don't question God and you don't question the world, but the doubt seeps in a little bit. Not so much whether I would be in the NBA or be able to play professional. It's just like, why is it happening? Like, what's going on? And so that was a very devastating and really old school surgery again. I had to pretty much be mobilized in a leg brace for 3 to 4 months, had pins and wires in my knee. So that was a little bit more, that took a lot of, if the first one took a little bit of athleticism out and I was able to regain it a little bit, the second one took a lot of starch out of, the athleticism, and that was more of a grind to rehab. And so college was tough for me to go from playing all those years, and then I think I played a total of 33, 34 games in 3 years. It was tough. But I had a great mom. I had a great support system. Staying home really mattered. Close, being maybe 45, 50 minutes from New Orleans, being in Baton Rouge helped a lot. Then I had a guy, and you might have heard of him, and the world might have heard of him, Sonny Vaccaro, who we were good friends. Then a 30-30 on him, soul man. He's a great just mentor and friend. And he just basically, there was a new rule that came out. You can put your name in the NBA draft if you didn't get an agent and go back to school. And all the teams that I talked to basically said that they would draft me if it was just a medical issue and I would heal. So that gave me a little bit more confidence, a little bit light at the end of the tunnel after a really dark time 3 years. You go from utopia to dark times. So it's just weird. And then I put my name in the draft. I knew once I did, I wasn't coming back because I knew it was just a medical thing. And I got healthy, and I was blessed by being drafted by the Rockets in the 1996 draft on the 42nd pick. So it seemed like all of that, there was some light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and sometimes you got to go through adversity. And sure enough, I went through it in college. It was some dark days, but I persevered and gave myself an opportunity. And a lot of it was on reputation, just all the stuff that I did previous and what I was doing in college before I got hurt. An NBA team took a chance. Like I said, the Rockets did, and my journeyman career started. But that first year was like a treat. So you go from utopia, dark times, and then like an amazing journey. I got to play with 3 top 50 players of all time, and Charles Barkley, Akeem Olajuwon, and Clyde Drexler, and then got coached by a Hall of Fame coach and Rudy Tomjanovich. So it was a great experience to watch those guys work every night. I had great veterans like Mario Elie, Kevin Willis, Eddie Johnson, Sadell Three. No, it was an incredible journey. I had all that stuff I had been through with the injuries to get rewarded. You know, it was great, and it was a good testament to just persevering. So that's, if you want to start from there and go to my journeyman career, we can go to that too. So.
Let's go. So here's the deal. Like, as you're saying that, it's just so crazy because, you know, if you're an athlete out there, especially at the collegiate level, even at the high school level, and you're excelling really well at what, you know, you're doing super good at what you're doing, you know, and you have a bright future, just know that, like, you know, Randy Livingston right here just talk to you guys about that. He went through an amazing career and then all of a sudden has to battle through some devastating injuries, and he still kept his ultimate goal in sight, and that was to make it to the league, and he did that. I know sometimes, like, I've met people who have gone through those injuries, and it's been like 2 or 3 straight seasons where they were kind of limited in what they could do because they're rehabbing, and then their dreams are crushed because they decide, well, that's not it for me. And, you know, sometimes that is the case, but in reality, if you want it bad enough, you can figure out a way to get there. You just got to put a lot of work in and have the right mindset, because I think from what you're saying is, like, it's mentally tough. And now you get drafted into the NBA, like you said, the Rockets, man. You just mentioned off names. That's when I was a little kid, man. That 96 squad, I was 8 years old at the time. But I remember them well. I'm a Utah Jazz fan, so I just remember the battles that we'd have with the Rockets and stuff, and how good they were, just how phenomenal they were. Now, I do have a question for you. A lot of people, you know, we look at it, sports fans who understand basketball understand that, like, okay, typically second-round picks, unless you're like an extremely good athlete, can make the team, like, or if it's a situation like yours where it was an injury. And so sometimes, though, in basketball, second-round picks, they just think of them as like, oh, they're going to be going overseas. Did you ever have that mentality, like when you got drafted second round? Were you excited and you had a lot of confidence that you're going to make the roster? Or did you almost have a fear as well, like, oh, they're just drafting me, but I'm going to be playing overseas in a couple months?
All right, so let's go back. I got a very, very funny tale about that situation.
Okay.
So draft night, the Denver Nuggets before the draft had 3 picks at the end of the first round. They said, we're going to use one of the picks on you, Randy, and let you rehab for the whole year. So for all the kids out there that, you know, basketball goes from fun to business very quickly. And so draft comes, they draft somebody in the first pick from overseas. The second pick, they draft somebody, and the third pick, they traded to the second round. Second round comes, they drafted Jeff McGinnis. So I don't know where I'm going to fall in draft. So then I get a call from Rudy Tomjanovich and Carol, no, it's just Rudy, and at the 42nd pick, said, how would you like to be a Rocket? Obviously, my heart, you know, was full of joy. I was happy. And so, you know, like most things, you're off the next day to go to the press conference. So my fellow draftees was Othello Harrington, who's from Mississippi, and Terrell Bell, who went to Georgia. Othello went to Georgetown. So we do the press conference. Great feeling, like your chest out, you know, you're feeling good. And then the GM at the time name was Bob Weinhauer. It's a funny story about him. His daughter has a kid that goes to Newman right now, which is funny. But when you hear this story, it's funny. So after the press conference, we go to the hotel, we have lunch. He pulls me to the side. He's like, look, Randy, you're not playing summer league. You're not doing any of that stuff. Our plan for you is to send you overseas and then keep your rights. So I'm like, wow. I go from great times, dark times, arrive, and then, like, it's just like a shot of adrenaline just gone in 1 second, right? Because you're like, you didn't go to the NBA draft to go overseas, and I didn't know anything about overseas at the time. So it was just like a downer, you know. And so I would say I go home, I tell my agent, I tell my family that, you know, that's what the guy's thinking. He's the GM, so I'm listening to him. And about 8 o'clock that morning, the next day, Robert Ory, Sam Cassell, Kenny Smith, all traded for Charles Barkley. So now the Rockets have a shortage of guards, right? Hour later, Rudy called me with Carol Dawson, who I'm still friends with to this day. And he says, Randy, we just fired Bob Weinhauer. You're our diamond in the rough. We're going to let you get healthy for the whole year. And, you know, we'll play you the next year. We're going to invest in you for a whole year. You'll be with the Rockets the whole time. On the back of my mind, I knew I was 90% at that point. So I knew I would be ready for training camp, but I didn't tell them that. But, like, that's how crazy professional sports go. One day they tell you you're going overseas, and then that guy gets fired. And then the next day you tell you're going to be on the team the whole year, and you're adding another top 50 player all the time in Charles Barkley. So, like, and they don't have any point guards on the roster at this moment. And so you're really excited, and that's how fast things go. And Bob wound up calling me last year and saying, Kenny, come watch a high school practice of mine being run as a coach. So how funny things are. And that's just, the life of a pro athlete.
Man, that's like full circle. I had no idea that story. Just so everyone that's listening understands, it's like I didn't know that when I asked this question. So I'm so glad that you elaborated on that.
Yeah.
That is crazy, man. And so it comes full circle, obviously now. But
definitely.
like everything, the opportunities, opportunities, like luck is when, preparation meets opportunity. And some might call it luck, but I mean, you had prepared and the opportunity presented itself, and hey, the emotions were riding high, then low, then high again. There you go. So that's awesome. Sure. It's so cool.
My rookie year, I got to see a treat though. Like, I mean, you're a Jazz fan, so the Stockton shot broke my heart because I thought we would have beat them in Game 7. But it was that year was tremendous. I mean, every night I saw a special performance by whether it was Clyde, Charles, or Akeem Olajuwon, or all 2 of them at one game, all 3 of them. It was amazing. They were so good. The NBA that was a special time. And I felt, to be honest with you, we had the team that probably could have beat the Bulls that year because we didn't have an answer for Mike, and he was good, but at least Mario, Ellie, and Clyde would have made him work. But then they didn't have any answer for Akeem Olajuwon. So if you tried to put Rodman on him, he was still too small. He couldn't really guard him. But that means Luke Longley guarded Charles, and that wasn't going to happen in his prime years. So we beat him twice that year too. So like it would have been something. But the better team won that night, and I got to wind up playing with John and Carl later in my career, and they were the ultimate professionals. So that was a heck of a time. I still have nightmares when that game comes on NBA TV and he hits it.
He hits the 3.
The compact center went from like sky high loud to like they just took all the air out of the ball.
Man, you talking about that from a player's perspective? I was in my front room.
I see your smile, so I know you were happy.
My dad, I know exactly where I was when he hit it. I know exactly what happened. Like, I was super excited. We were screaming as a third grader, man. But you were in there, like, as a player. It's so cool talking to you, man. It's awesome. So, I mean, that kind of brings me into my next question, Randy, is the fact that you played with such amazing talent, and you played in a couple different eras. Now, it's interesting. I actually just talked to Jerry Stackhouse, and it's kind of a similar situation. Like, you guys came in similar time frames and played in different eras of basketball. Like, you came in the mid-'90s, and you were playing with the Rockets with these amazing athletes, playing against some of the amazing talent. But you also, I mean, over the course of the next decade, a little more than that, 11 years, you got to play on a lot of teams and against a lot of players. So it's going to be tough for me to ask this question because you just mentioned like 3, 4, 5 different guys. But like I was going to say top 2. Who was the top 2 players that you say like that you played with, and who was the top 2 players that you played against?
Oh, that's a good question. With Akeem Olajuwon was special. It was the truth. I never saw one guy, and they said he wasn't like that early in his career, but so dedicated to his craft. And, man, he did the same routine every day for all 82 games, every practice. He stretched the same. He did his pre-workout the same. I mean, he lifted the same. He ate the same. Like, he was driven. He was special. Second one, I played with so many. It's just hard to tell. But, like, I got to play with him through a training camp, but I thought he was the hardest working player that I'd ever played with, and that was Kevin Garnett. I was in training camp with Minnesota one year, and I never saw a player practice that hard. I mean, I knew the superstars brought it in the game, but he brought it in the game and practice every day. And he was the ultimate teammate on and off the court. So I would give them two right away. That doesn't take anything away from Stockton, Malone, J. Kidd, Gary Payton. That doesn't take anything away from any of those guys. It's just that those guys were pretty special. Now, as far as players I played against, I always answer that question with, like, position, right? So obviously Mike's the greatest, so I played against Mike a couple times. But if I want to say players I played against and I would try equal position, I would say, you asked for two, but I'm going to give you three.
Cool.
Stockton, J. Kidd, and Gary Payton. They were point guards, and they were incredible. And I got to play against Nash, too. He's in that group. But, like, them three were amazing and different, all different. J. Kidd was different than Gary. Gary was different than John, and vice versa. John was different also. Like, those were the best of the best in my era, and I really enjoyed competing against those guys. And really, I got lucky. I got to play with all three of those guys. So I got to practice against them every day. So I saw the tricks of the trade every day. I played with Jason in Phoenix. I played with John in Utah, and I was in Seattle 2 different times with Gary. So that was just to be able to see it every day and then see it in the game. And then on other teams I played against them, they were the best to me.
So awesome, man. Just the names that you're just dropping, it's just like bringing me back. Those, I mean, it wasn't until I watched The Last Chance, sorry, not The Last Dance, Last Dance. When I watched The Last Dance documentary and I'm like going back in my head, it was like bringing me back to when I was a child, seeing all the talent that was there, like the true talent in the NBA at that time, especially at the point guard position. And then your name dropping them too. I'm like, gosh, dang, I guess I was just so young that I didn't have a full understanding of it. And then I'm watching now, I'm like, man, all these guys were just super, super good. Like the argument of, oh, could those guys have played in this day's NBA? I think they were. Now that I look back, I'm like, yeah, they killed them.
They would have killed them.
They're super physical. They're talented.
Now, Curry could play in any era. There's some of the guys that are great that can play in any era, but like they were just smarter than the guys today. Just put it like that. Their mental capacity was very large. It was unlimited. So, and they were physically gifted and talented too. The one wish I did have, is like I would love to see a healthy Rain Livingston in the NBA versus those guys. Like that like is something that, it doesn't haunt me, but it would have been. I would love to see that because I felt like I was probably just as good as Jason Kidd, but more athletic and just as big as Gary and smart as Stockton. So, like, I just would have liked to have seen it. But, it didn't happen. God had different plans, but I got to play with those guys and be around them every day, and that was a treat for me.
Totally, man. And just – I mean, the thing is you played for a long time in the NBA. You can call it a journeyman career. You played in a lot of teams. That's better than most people get to do. Like the average average career span is less than 5 years in the NBA.
3.
Well, there you go. Okay, see, there you go. And so the fact that you were able to make it over a decade is super impressive. And it is unfortunate, that you didn't get to stay 100% healthy the whole way through it. But you still got to be around some amazing talent. I think that's awesome. It's obviously you can see like your competitive nature. You can see that you like allow that to like you learn from those guys because you're crushing it still to this day. I follow you from afar, and it's kind of cool to watch your story, man. And you're always just a hard worker. And one last question I got to ask you too, like before we get into the next step, is your favorite coach. You talked about like with Houston, and you played for like Jerry Sloan. Like I mean, I talked to Walter Bond, and when Walter Bond was with the Jazz, he told me that throughout his very short tenure in the NBA, Jerry Sloan was one of the best coaches he's ever been around. I'm curious your thoughts, though, because you had so many amazing coaches.
Yeah, I did. And I took something from all of them. Jerry is probably the most fair coach, and he was obviously a Hall of Famer in his own right. But like when I think of Jerry, he was just fair. He treated everybody the same. He yelled and cussed at John and Carl just as much as he cussed at the 12th guy on the bench or the guy on the injured reserve. I mean, he was just fair and he gave guys shots. So you got to recommend that. For me, though, it would be a name you probably wouldn't think, but I played for Sos, and Nate McMillan's a Olympic coach, all that. But Danny Ainge was to me the best coach. I'll tell you why, because he saw something in me that the rest didn't see. And he had a lot of respect for my game, and he gave me a chance. He was the first coach to give me a 2-year deal. And that meant a lot to me. So he believed in me. And that's the main thing when you think of coaching. You got to find somebody to believe in you. And like all the stuff that I've been through, he believed in brain over jumping high and moving fast and running a 4.3. He just believed in basketball players. And that's the one thing I wish I know you got to have the intangibles, and everybody is guys at 45-inch vertical or run fast or does this stuff that's athletically. But at the end of the day, we're all basketball players. And I hope, excuse me, most coaches would look for pure basketball players because they don't come around often and they're special and they can still do a lot of things that the athletic guys do, but differently, but better, and you can win with them. And I think that's important. That's why I say Danny. So that might be a bit of a surprise because I played for some great coaches, man. Rudy T was fun coach, but Danny just gave me a job. And not only gave me a job, he believed in me.
I hope everyone's listening to this and like taking notes right now. Cause like, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, that's super important. And yeah, it makes total sense why you would say that because yeah, you got a coach that believed in you, gave you a shot. And obviously we'll talk to you in a second about that, how that's kind of translated into your coaching career, but that's super impactful for anyone. It doesn't matter if you're a professional athlete or in high school or college, whatever, like coaching, even at the middle school level for crying out loud, coaching can have a major impact on you. Like it had an impact on you right now. Somebody believed in you. And I think that's awesome, man. Last NBA question I was going to pass on real quick, but I got to ask you, Randy, what was your favorite memory in the NBA? You had a long career. So what was your all-time favorite memory in the NBA?
It's hard to top my rookie year, just at all I had been through, and then to get that treat of being on that team. But you know what? My favorite memory, and not too many people know this, but the lockout year, or that year, or maybe it's the year afterwards. It wasn't the lockout year. So the Spurs go on to win a championship. Okay, in the lockout year. The very next year, I'm in Phoenix. Jason Kidd goes down. I get to start 17 games, and I start in the playoffs against the defending national champions. National champions. Yep. Not national champion, world champion. And we win that series. So that was like really, really big deal. But not only we win with me starting. So I had been probably 7 years in and been grinding. And to now play against a world championship team and to beat them in the playoffs with pretty much the same team. And there was a young Sean Marion on that team. I think Penny Hardaway was on that team. And I was the starting point guard. That's like, to me, that was my finest memory because the goal of the NBA is to try to win a championship. But then for my career to be able to play in the playoffs and replace someone like Jason Kidd, which you never can replace him, but to be able to hold the fort down. And then obviously, consequently, we lost in the next round to the Lakers. But it was just an awesome feeling. It felt like I had arrived. After all that years and all I had been through, I finally got an opportunity to lead a team. And was successful at it. And that's what's, about that moment. So that was really, really good.
I can only imagine. That's actually amazing. I'm going to have to go back and kind of see if I can find some highlights of that series too now. That's so cool. And you're talking about the Lakers too that you had to play against. You got to play against Kobe. Obviously, it's unfortunate that Kobe went
not here with us anymore. Yep.
But do you have a memory of Kobe Bryant real quick before we get to your G League or D League experience? Do you have a memory of playing Kobe that like sticks out to you?
It's not a memory of playing him, but for all the young kids today, I think his mentality, and they call it the Mamba mentality, he went for it from the very first day he stepped on the NBA court. And he failed miserably his rookie year. People don't really understand that. I mean, that series against the Jazz, he was awful. I'll just be honest with him. He wasn't very good. But at the end of the day, that's what made him who he was. And so he went for it, all out, all the time, and then eventually he conquered it. He figured it out, and he not only became a great scorer, he became a great teammate later on in his career. He figured out how to win, whether it was with Shaq or without him. He figured it out. And so, yeah, he was a special guy, man. And I know he was doing special things off the court after he had retired. So it's just sad that we lost him so early.
Totally. Like, it's devastating for me, obviously, growing up watching him. And I just bought his book, The Mamba Mentality. I gotta go learn from him, because there's a lot of things we can learn from guys like yourselves, like just people who've been there at the highest level. So that's why I'm trying to learn the best that I can from people like yourself, and then obviously people like him with his Mamba mentality. Now I referenced earlier, Randy, that you played for the Stampede. That's actually where I remember seeing you play, because
Yep.
I was right out of high school, about 2 years out of high school, when you guys you won the title. The D League at the time, now known as the G League, right?
Yep.
It's going through that transition, but the D League. Talk about your experience there, because what some people may not fully understand is, or at least not know yet, is that you were a 2-time MVP, if I'm not mistaken, of the D League. Is that correct?
One-time MVP.
One-time
And then
MVP.
we won a championship. So,
Okay. One-time MVP of the D League, and you won a championship. So talk about your experience in the D League. What was that like?
Well, for most kids, adults, whoever listens to this podcast, the G League, and I would call it the minor league, because I'm gonna go back to the CBA too, is I have a lot of fond memories of it. It was basically how I became who I became. Like people don't understand, I made it out of all the minor league systems every year to the last year when I retired and we won a championship, to the NBA. Like some of those years, 5 or 6 years, I would come and grind and put on my workman hat and then get a call up. I think, and I'm gonna put this out here for Sharif Abdul-Rahim, but I feel like I should be the logo of the G League. I mean, I was cut 20-something times in my NBA career, but then I'm the all-time leader in call-ups. And so that's the model of the league. It's changed a little bit now, because now you have the two-way players, and it's basically for the development of the NBA guys, like a real minor league baseball franchise. But at the end of the day, I've forged some amazing relationships. That's what I take from minor league. It was guys that had the same goals, and sometimes it wasn't winning. It was just to get called up and earn a living for your family. But it was great. I would have never thought in my wildest dreams, growing up in New Orleans, Louisiana, I would travel to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and play in the CBA. In fact, my first trip going to Sioux Falls, I got on the plane going to Sioux City, not knowing it was different. Sioux City, Iowa, Sioux Falls. So, like, here it is. I'm a city boy, southern boy. And so, but I had great times. It was bloody cold in Sioux Falls. So I go from a southern kid from New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Houston, Atlanta, and then Sioux Falls. Cold, rude awakening. And so there I met Bill Eilert, who was the owner of the Stampede, or the majority owner. And I met him at a playoff series in Sioux Falls playing against the Idaho Stampede. One Damon Jones, who had a great NBA career, was on that team. And we had played in Boise a couple times that season, and I loved the city. I was a little, the blue turfy, they get carried away with that a little too much, but I loved the city. It was a great city. It was just different. People were nice, genuine. Food was great. It just was so peaceful, and a lot of outdoors. And so after we beat them in that best-of-5 series, I just told Bill, if there was ever a chance, I would love to come play in Boise one day. And he was like, look, if there's ever a chance, we would love you too. So let's make it happen. So the next time I came back to the minor leagues, and it was hard to leave Sioux Falls because my jersey retired there too. It was really a great place. But then I went to Boise, and it was an incredible move. Like I said, Boise's like a second home to me. And I still have a lot of friends. My assistant coach at my high school team right now, Travis Russell, he was somebody that I met in Boise. He's with me. We've been friends for a while. Roberto Bergerson, he's like one of my all-time friends. He's probably one of the best teammates I've ever had on and off the court. And then to get to not only play for the franchise in Boise and play for Brian Gates, Larry Stoviak, play for a couple other people. I'm missing Roy White. So I had different stints in Boise. Man, it was incredible. So then I'll go from player to associate head coach, then to head coach and lead the franchise, get my jersey retired. The relationship I have with the fans and Bill, it's special, man. And to watch guys like Brent Petway grow, Mike Taylor become the first guy from the minor leagues to get drafted in the NBA, and then for us to win a championship, help Lance already get to, an NBA team, play with guys like Corey Violet, Jason Ellis. The list goes on and on. It was just an incredible family-like experience. Some of my favorite restaurants, I still love Goldie's. It's one of the best breakfast places I ever, Goldie's is my spot. I love the Barnett, everything about Boise. I got to spend time in different parts of Idaho, and that was incredible. So, I owe a lot to the Idaho Stampede franchise. They really, really, if you want to say I grew up and became a man on and off the court in Boise and in Idaho, I did. Like it protected and molded me like you would never believe. And so it was pretty special.
Super cool, Randy. I appreciate you sharing all that info, man, because like we know as fans, like we remember you, but like, and you're name dropping guys like Roberto Bergerson. He was my childhood idol. I grew up. I mean, I had him on my show 2 years ago. I love that man. Like,
it's my guy.
I changed my shot. I changed the way I played. I always wanted to model Roberto Bergerson. Like he was my man. So like just seeing you guys team up together on that championship stint, like Jason Ellis, even I watched him at Boise State. Like I just kind of grew up watching those guys. And so when they were all together, competing with you, it's just cool to see that you guys all just came together and were able to do something and still have fun with it. Some guys get down on themselves because they think that the D League or the CBA at the time, like before turning to the D League, they think that it's like it's something to not take serious. No, like most of those guys, if not all of those guys that are in those leagues are far superior to those that are like at the collegiate level or anything like that, because they're professional athletes. So it's just cool to hear you talk about that. Now, to finish up, Randy, you're at the coaching level now. You had a short stint at LSU, your school that you played at. You were an assistant there, and now I just want you to tell us a little bit about your stint right now with Newman. Going back like full circle, if we're talking full circle, talk to us about what you're up to now and what we can expect in the future from Randy Livingston.
Yeah, it was awesome. And maybe one day we'll get into it, like kind of like my coaching. So I started in Maine, and then I came back to Boise, and then became the head coach. Then left and went to Australia.
Okay.
Started grassroots in Australia, started a business, and it exceeded all my expectations. And then I came back home to my alma mater, LSU. Coach Johnny Jones was the head coach, and he recruited me. So that was interesting time in my life. And it was a short stint. We didn't have a great year, and moved on. And then, life is funny like that, man. If you'd have told me I would have been in New Orleans again after all of the travels I've been, but it's been the perfect. I mean, I think a lot of times we go in life looking for so many different things you want to do with your career, and sometimes it's right in front of you and smack in your face, and timing's everything. And they had an opening, and I thought about it, and I coached 8th grade 1 year just to kind of see if this is really the level I wanted to be. But to be honest, man, it's been the perfect fit because I enjoy teaching. I enjoy being around young men. And one thing Clyde Drexler did teach me my rookie year was that, don't go to your grave with the knowledge and experiences that you have. Pass it on, give it back. He told me that countless times my rookie year. And that's what I'm doing. Like, this is Newman's a special school. And when I say it comes full circle, it's like God has put me here for a reason. I mean, another Manning's on the horizon, which is crazy, Arch Manning. And to me, I saw Peyton and Eli at the same age. He's better than them at the same age, and it's not close. So it's scary to think of that. And he still has a long way to go, but he's a great kid. And then we get a highly touted freshman in Chris Lockett, who's ranked in the country reminds me a lot of myself and when I was at Newman. And so I'm here to help him, mold him, and hopefully, he maximize his career and have a great future. So like, God puts you in places for a reason, and this has been an incredible experience. My kids get a great education because obviously Newman, you think about Odell Beckham and the Mannings and myself, but it's really an academic institution, and it's a higher learning place and high expectations in terms of the classroom. So to have my kids able to go to school here, and I mean, I'm blessed beyond belief, and it's a place I'm comfortable with. The headmaster of the school was my assistant coach here, so he was coaching the basketball team, and another person was the college counselor, just retired after 46 years at one place. I don't know how he did that. But he was an assistant coach. So there was some familiarity, and it's been incredible last year just to join and take over the high school ranks. So a dream come true, and for sure full circle. And it's a good way for my story to, come full circle. I started working on a book that we're 135 pages in. And so this is kind of like the ultimate full circle story. So I'm excited.
Man, this is awesome. Well, the book's ready. I'm going to read it. So you got to give me a signed copy. I'm just kidding.
There'll be a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't know along the journey. So many stories, so many people.
That's the stuff I geek out about, man. That's why I actually have this podcast. I like to have people, share stories, but even in books, like I can learn so much from people. So that's awesome. Randy, it's been an awesome time talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing this. I mean, there's probably so much more that you could share and whatnot.
We need 2 hours, mate.
Yeah, I know. I totally understand. And I just really appreciate you, taking the time to at least get the base story out there for us and letting us learn from you. Now, if there was one thing that you could leave, this is the last question I got for you, one thing that you could leave to anybody out here, whether they're an athlete or not, or a coach, what's the one piece of advice that, you would leave to pass on down, just like Clyde Drexler told you to do? What's the one piece of advice?
That's an easy one. I mean, actually, I've, coined it, and it's my brand right now, Live On. It's basically the first 3 letters of my last name, wife's name. But, a lot of people don't know, but it has a significant meaning to me. Live on, it means exactly what it said. No matter what happens in your life, good, bad, middle ground times, tough times, injuries, career curtail, you don't know what you're going to do, but you got to continue to not only live on, but push on, and continue to live your life. And, eventually you'll find your home. And it's, for me, it's no greater place to be back home in New Orleans and being able to live on through, basketball still, through other people's lives, being able to help kids. I mean, I couldn't think of a better thing to do. And so sometimes you go around the world, you travel the world, travel the country, trying to figure out what it is that you want to do. But eventually you'll find your place, and you'll live on to a place that you're comfortable, happy, and you'll know that you're in the right place at the right time. And I think that's what I would call peace of mind and comforting, knowing that you're doing what you love and not what you have to do because you have to earn a living, and you're doing what you love doing. And that's important.
Appreciate it. And it's there's no better way to end the discussion than with that. So just remember, guys, live on. Once again, Randy Livingston, we appreciate you joining the show, sir. And we look forward to seeing what you do as a coach right now at Newman. Thanks, man.
No, I appreciate it, Shane. And it was a pleasure. And if, I don't know if you can add more guests to your show, but maybe, I know we're talking about having a 2008 reunion with the Stampede team. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. And I would love to, get on with a couple more guys from that group. So let me know.
Oh, let's set that up. I'm always looking for new guests on the show at all times. So let's see if we could set some up. I think that'd be awesome, especially here in the Treasure Valley.
No, appreciate it. Thanks, Shane.
For sure, Randy. Thanks, sir. And you take care.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.